for the, yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, and I had spoke with him too whenever I was running, and he said that it did really well too, but it was just that it needed business hours, like it needed a strict schedule.
Yeah.
And I mean, I see Brandon from the Black Sheep's Tram all the time, and it does have people in it as well, so people will do that, and
Yeah.
I do understand like that, I feel like if you find a solution for the train parking, and then you find a solution for the employee parking, then why not then address it then and say, okay, well, now we need to do the 2-hour parking if this hasn't worked, because we've found all these parking spots now. We now have a parking garage that we haven't had. It is better down there than what it used to be.
And Christy, I will answer that. Unless people, if given the option, they're going to park there because there's no restriction. And that's one thing that even Michael Train has said. You can't, if it's there, they're going to park. And I know Angie had posted a video that I had taken back in May. It was on a Sunday morning, and it was around 9 a.m. A little bit, it was before 9. And I started down here, I was at Chester's, and I just noticed it. It's Sunday morning, no businesses are open, but every parking space, as far as the eye could see, was taken. And it was all train. And that is at 9 a.m. You can go to her website or her Facebook page and see that. I took 4 videos. I walked on down East Main, and I got to the bottom, and at Mountain Street, it was packed with people down through there. I have video. Walked around to the municipal parking, not a soul was parked in our parking lot at the end. So I look down Roberts Way. Roberts Way is filling up with people. I videoed that. And I have these videos if anybody wants to see them. This was May the 22nd of 2021. And so then I walked on up West Main and got up here. I was down here where General Ledger is now. And I took a video going back down West Main and even over in front of Caldwell Banker and over here on East in front of the old Rexall. That's what I call it. Anyway, that was all full as well. And most of the people were parked. They were in line. There was a huge line at the train. And like I said, we love the train. They brought 105,000 tourists through our city last year. We love them, but we also understand we need to find them a place to park, because as business owners, I would think you guys would not want them taking up those valuable spaces all day long, because they're gone for 4 hours. Someone asked me, well, actually this was part of the study for the Northwest Regional Commission for our comprehensive plan. Can McCaysville and Blue Ridge work together on parking? Because I remember 4 or 5 years ago when we did that, someone said, well, why don't you guys have the train pick up some people in McCaysville and some can be picked up in Blue Ridge just to help alleviate the problem? And of course, we've never done that. And McCaysville doesn't really have a problem with train parking. They do have the tourism that comes from it, but they don't have the parking issues that we have with it. And again, it's an issue that has been resolved because there are places for them to park. But we can't force the train to sell tickets or to work with other people. But what we can do is kind of gently nudge them to those paid parking spaces. Yes?
I think many people here in the audience have attended sports events in Atlanta, anywhere, University of Georgia, anywhere else. If you do not have a disincentive, people will go to park on the street. So the incentive at every sporting event, the Omni, everywhere else is, if you don't park in the designated parking and pay for it, they snatch and grab your car, and when you come back, your vehicle is gone. Now, I believe that if you do not have enforcement on the city street for not parking, as you say, they're going to park there. And there is no disincentive for a trained person today with all the opportunity to go down to the parking lot. They are going to park in those spaces. People who work in those stores are going to park in those spaces. And the only way to not park in that space is to have a disincentive. Now, we have already established that we have a 2-hour rule. So let's put up a 2-hour sign if people don't want us to have a 3-hour rule. And then snatch and grab if they're longer than 2 hours. I think that's ludicrous. I mean, but that's the only way you're going to get to train people not to park there. You've got to have a disincentive. And if you do not have a disincentive, they are going to park there. I mean, that's the path of least resistance. That's human behavior. So we either enforce we enforce the ordinance we've got and have affirmed. We've affirmed every ordinance in there. And we are in the process of trying to establish that we are following the ordinances. So let's follow that ordinance until it's replaced, period.
Hey, Bill, did you have something?
Yeah, this is about the ordinance. Okay, if the ordinance does go through, is this going to necessitate hiring another police officer to do this enforcement, or
Nope.
can just the police department on their own?
Yep.
Even,
That we would not have to hire anyone else. We're actually fully staffed with our police department, so. Yep. And we have been working, Mr. Sauer, you want to talk again about this? Eric has been working with police chief and Robbie on this.
Yes, we've been discussing this on and off for the past, I guess since I got here 2.5 weeks ago, on how to implement these ordinances. And again, the problem with the existing ordinance that's on the books, I think it was adopted in 1979, it doesn't quantify the fine system that should be in place if you're going to have enforcement. So if you're going to adopt something, we would recommend that you adopt a new ordinance that would replace that and have a fine system, spell out what the signs have to say and where they go. So we've been looking at all that situation in order to implement something as we go along, but it would not require additional personnel at this time.
Okay, I guess from this point on, I think we've all recognized something has to be done with East Mountain. We have a 2-hour ordinance there now. Would you all be open for me to directing the city attorney to come up with a 3-hour ordinance? 3-hour limit? Is that what we're thinking, 3 hours? You guys, 3?
So what are you asking, Doc, to do the 2-hour ordinance now?
No, I don't. I say you have two choices. Choice number one is to investigate the 3-hour ordinance and have a penalty that's defined. And I've reviewed that with the city manager and I've reviewed that with the city attorney. And that's what was being proposed. But if we decide in all of our wisdom, after Christie's impassioned plea, to do nothing, then to do nothing means we go to 2 hours.
Wait, I'm not in favor of doing nothing.
Well, no, what I mean, if we don't pass the 3-hour limit, you're going to 2. We have that in place.
We have 2 hours on the books
Excuse me,
right
we
now.
can't talk with one another. Madam Mayor, we have a
Yes.
2-hour ordinance. We have affirmed in prior meetings that we are going to follow the ordinances that are in the book.
Correct.
So we have two choices tonight. Number one is enforce the 2-hour limit, which we have already affirmed we're going to do. Or look at coming up with a new ordinance that has teeth in it and is 3 hours long.
Correct.
But I prefer the second.
So do I.
prefer a new ordinance with 3 hours and teeth, rather than reverting to 2 hours with no teeth.
And Ms. Harper, you feel the same way?
Oh, yeah, that's what I was getting to with Doc.
I still, just from seeing how many people do not want this, locals, natives, business owners, it's really, and I mean, I respect all of y'all, your viewpoint, and I understand that there is a problem. I just feel like maybe take it in steps, like as far as putting in signs, working with the train. You know, I think that they would be glad to work with you and, you know, see how that works. Work with the business owners and get them in the spot and just see how that works. Or even putting a few signs, you know, and seeing how the police are able to manage that instead of just going full blown. That's just, I think doing it in stages would be better.
That's not a choice, though.
Yeah.
It's 2
Yeah, and
hours or 3 hours.
I think our throughout the history, historically, we have been staging these, going from no paid parking to paid parking municipal, going from having no private parking lots to having parking lots. And so I think we're at the point in the game now, it's down kind of to East Main. What do you do there? And I think you have to make a decision. Do you stick with your 2-hour? Do you do paid parking? Or do you go with something a little bit more, 3-hour or whatever? I don't think you really have an option of halfway doing it down through there. I think you've got to make a decision as to what you really want to do. That's where we're at with this. And this is after years, again, of research and years of studies on this.
How long has Keepers been here? Have we sent the train to their parking?
So again, you can't really force them to go there. You can't do that until you have something in place that will say, you can't park here, so you're going to have to go either here, 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 here. So that's kind of where we are with that, because they're taking up, space for 4 hours, probably more. So what you've got to do, you can't just ask them to do it. We have asked in the past. You've got, and the train even agrees, you've got to say, you can't park here, but here are your options. And what I have been working with Cesar Martinez, he has with Business Association, they have a map, and this map is also, we got the idea, Ms. Art found it on Dahloneg's website, and it's really clear. And this is one thing we would give the train to put on their website, and it would show, okay, here is where we have limited parking. So you can't park there, but here's your paid options where you can park. These are for employees, and it would be very clear cut. And if you go to Dahloneg's website, you'll see it under their parking. But that way the train patrons know where they're going. And they park in those spaces not knowing they're not supposed to park there because there's no signage. There's nothing that limits them not to do it. So they're not doing anything wrong. They're just taking up spaces that we know are valuable for, the businesses downtown. So we're trying to, that's been the topic of studies throughout the years to you're going to have to do something to get them to from point A to point B. And by asking them, hey, will you send your people? Not everybody's going to do that, but if I pull up and see a limited 3-hour parking and I know my trip's 4 hours, I'm not going to park there.
Does Dahlonega have the 2 or
They have,
parking?
so yeah, they have limited parking, they have all-day parking, and then they have areas identified, even like with private parking areas. Go on their website, you'll like that. And we do have someone who can design that for both us, for the city, for their website, for our social media page, and for Chamber of Commerce, for the train that they could use as well, just to kind of direct people where they should go.
So in front of the stores in Dahlonega, it's 3-hour parking?
They're actually, I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look at that. I can do it up like we put them. It's on their website, so. Okay, Angie spoke with them, didn't you?
I did, yes, and Chief of Police over there said that it works fine. I said, well, do you have to ticket a lot of people? He said they probably have maybe 30, but that's everything in a month. That doesn't seem like a lot to me, but you've got a lot of business. But one thing that you remember is this, we can try this. This doesn't have to be forever. If we see that people stop coming to Blue Ridge because we have limited parking, we quickly take it down. I mean, parking is, paid parking and limited parking is used across this nation. I've never heard of a town bankrupting because you had limited parking. So it's just managing parking. So, I mean, we can always do away with it if it's having a negative impact.
I agree with you. I don't think anything that we could do at this point is going to deter tourism at this point. People aren't going to come downtown because they have to pay, and they're certainly not going to come downtown if they have a limited area. That's just going to give them more availability to go in stores and turnover for our residents.
Well, actually, when you implemented paid parking, prior, probably 6-7 years ago, everybody said that doing paid parking would absolutely destroy tourism in Blue Ridge. Has it affected it?
No. No. I think even during, we weren't handling the parking at that point last fall, but during November, December, it was, bringing in $40,000 a month, so, yeah. So I don't see that paid parking is a problem, but I think it has to be strategically placed, and I think we have people who have stepped in and helped us get where we need to be with parking, with their private parking lots and areas. Bill, do you have a question?
I have a question, okay. We talked about the 2 hour and going to 3 hour. Some of the patrons here, they don't want the 3 hours. They don't want any. What if we went 4 hours? Would that help anybody?
So I think if you go 4 hour, you're again getting into the situation where your train patrons are still going to park there because their trips are about 4 hours. So that was, we even talked about 2, but that's not, from what I've heard from people, 2 is not enough, 4 is too much, because that opens the window again to your train. So their trips are 4 hours, so they probably think, oh, I can get in, get out. So really, I think your only option is 3. So do we have a consensus to move forward with preparing an ordinance for next month's reading?
For 3 hours.
For 3 hours. We're not voting tonight, we're just giving me direction to go forward, so.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time, and we'll be working on this next month. Thank you.
We can't do anything. We could do